Grounded in a spirituality that privileges nature as the divine source of life and knowledge. The Afro-futurist representations in this video call for a reconciliation of the past through an active interrogation of the present as we work to envision our future.
Wingo lama to. Amuka. Naongate. We bakube.
Griots are the merchants of the dreams of African people. They are artists and musicians, tasked with keeping and telling the stories of their respective communities. While this role comes from the oral tradition of pre-colonial Africa, the job of the griot is especially significant in a globalized world where African artists yield the power of directing representations of themselves, their people, land, and history. The creative expression of African people is an anti-colonial weapon and vehicle for liberation. Through art and through dreaming, contemporary artists imagine new futures for themselves, grounded in a strong understanding of and reconciliation with their past. The representations of Kenyan futurity of both To Catch a Dream by the Nest Collective and Pumzi by Wanuri Kahu represent dreams and the metaphysical as worlds where notions of nature, beauty, spirituality, imagination, and knowledge are interdependent and always in dialogue. In both films, the construction of the main characters, Ajuma and Asha, represent African women in conversation with the metaphysical, as the main plot is that each are dreaming and trying to communicate with those inner visions in order to affect their material realities. Pumzi is set in a distant future, 35 years after a water war that has relegated East African citizens to live in insulated communities, removed from the wasteland that has become of the rest of the earth. The opening of Pumzi takes place in the institution of a museum that holds and names plants, seeds, soils, and articles of the past as dead like the rest of the earth is said to be. The soil Asha receives sparks her recurring dreams of life outside the institution that is this museum and insulated community. Her dream world is drastically different though. Similarly to Catch a Dream, the sharp contrast between the stark, cold, enclosed aesthetic of the solely indoor spaces depicted in both of their material worlds, juxtaposed to the bright, grand, and expansive natural landscape of Dream Country, do the work of showing a visual representation of an institutionalized environment versus an expressive, imaginary landscape of the mind-body-spirit and how intertwined it is with nature. There is an absence of nature in the insulated material worlds, and it isn't until the African women communicate with their inner visions and nature that the plot unravels and the visuals transcend the hegemonic definitions of beauty and knowledge. The use of eye makeup in both films represent the seers and holders of knowledge, and in both dream worlds, the seers have their maps and understandings of the land that help guide the story through its path. There's also a reclamation of the land as beautiful, valuable, and knowledgeable through the active framing of nature and landscapes in fashion film To Catch a Dream, allowing the landscapes to present themselves as beautiful natural fabrics. There is also an indictment of the institutional policing of imagination, nature, knowledge, beauty, and spirituality, specifically through the incorporation of dream suppressants. In both films, dream suppressants are prescribed by the institutions to inhibit dreaming, therefore to inhibit the exploration of knowledge in the imagination, mind, body, spirit, and nature. However, the pills do not work. In To Catch a Dream, the remedy that is ultimately effective is not the pills that are representative of Western institutional medicine or science, but in the indigenous Nubian spiritual knowledge she receives from a friend, relative, through the phone. Through that ancestral knowledge and later knowledge of spirit land guides, the frame articulates dreamland as a metaphysical and physical space. That intertwining does the work of articulating the interdependent relationship between nature and culture, spirituality and knowledge, dream and material. Through African women's dream, we are guided to this knowledge that envisions a counter-hegemonic and liberating reality for the future. The ending of Pumzi visually articulates that when Asha, representing the power of African women, plants the seed, waters it with all she has left, and wraps herself around it. The work of this visual asserts the hope and potential for future lies in the knowledge within African women, the land, and power of imagination and dreams.
We Africa, bu jant bi fenkee waaw na la fekk joo ak sa jumtukaay